Antigens will bind to receptors on B cells as well as T cells. The receptors on B cells are called B cell receptors, or BCRs. The receptors on T cells for the antigens are T cell receptors, or TCRs. In order for a T cell to recognize its specific antigen, the antigen must be presented to it by either a macrophage, dendritic cell, or a B cell. The antigen is going to be bound to a protein located on the membrane of the presenting cell called a major histocompatibility complex. Let's look at this illustration that I drew here. This cell here could be a macrophage or a dendritic cell. We're just going to call it a dendritic cell. Remember, they're phagocytic. During phagocytosis, recall that they are going to merge the phagosome, which contains whatever was eaten, with a lysosome to form a phagolysosome, and digestion will occur within the phagolysosome, where what was ingested is broken down into molecules. Some of those molecules can function as antigens, so after exocyte, or we can take some of those molecules and bind them to an MHC. All of this is happening inside the cell. If it's not going to function as an antigen, it will just be released by exocytosis. But we're talking about presentation here. This red protein represents an MHC that is attached to the surface of this dendritic cell. And this purple structure represents the antigen. The dendritic cell places the antigen on the MHC and then expresses that on its membrane. This here is going to be a T lymphocyte, so a T cell. This then would be the T cell receptor. Remember that the T cell receptor is going to bind to the antigen that is being presented attached to an MHC. So this is an MHC antigen complex. That is the only way that this T cell receptor can bind to that antigen. So it can't just come across it and bind to it when it's just by itself. It has to be attached to an MHC. I'm going to talk about this protein a little bit later, but this is a CD protein, and different types of T cells will have different types of CD proteins. But that CD protein actually comes from the T cell, and it will bind to the MHC antigen complex. So it basically tightens this binding here.